Thank you. First, thanks to the witness and to Chairman Shaheen and Ranking Member Johnson for holding this hearing. It's really an important topic. We're now in the 106th day of the war against Ukraine. I just met with a bunch of Ohioans who are Ukrainian Americans who are very frustrated by what they see in Ukraine, with the Russians have superior weapons, and then with our sanctions against Russia, the global sanctions not being as effective as they should be. I have focused a lot on this issue of energy because that's where most of the money is coming from to fund the war machine. $870 million a day, roughly, coming from Europe alone to the coffers. And with big profit margins, that enables Putin to continue to fight this war without the kinds of consequences that I would hope we could put in place. So good that the European Union is beginning to, over a 6 to 8 month period, wean themselves away from Russian oil, but too little, too late. And so that's my big concern, is that we're not doing what we need to do to be able to actually have the Putin regime feel the pain. 10 to 12% reduction in their economy, 40 to 50% reduction in the Ukrainian economy, as an example, over the past 106 days. So, Mr. Hochstein, I understand you are currently serving as a senior member of the U.S.-European Union Task Force on Energy Security. And again, I have said positive things about that, but also said they need to move more quickly. Can you please provide us just a brief update, maybe you already have, and specifically, what is in this work plan? We haven't seen publicly, what is actually in the work plan. And I would love if you could provide me with the, updates of the progress of this task force as we go forward. But I wonder if you could give us a report, maybe you already have today and I missed it, but specifically on what the work plan is.
Sure, Senator. And so the task force, we have a mechanism called the US-EU Energy Council, which addresses sort of long-term relationship between the United States and the EU. So the task force was created not to disrupt that work as the long term, but rather to address things that are the immediate concern. I co-chair the task force with the EU Commission President van der Leyen's Chief of Staff, and Bjorn Siebert. We are looking at two parallel things that we want to achieve through this task force. One is to increase the amount of gas flowing into Europe on an immediate basis. We've committed from the U.S. to try to increase that by 15 BCM this year. That's not just LNG from the U.S., but the U.S. using our diplomatic efforts and creative thinking to provide that gas through pipeline and LNG from around the world. I think we're making significant progress towards that goal. Second, we want to be in a place where we can increase the supplies of LNG to Europe by 50 BCM, 50, by the end of the decade. To do that, though, Europe has to take its own steps. It has to build the infrastructure, which it had not done, and it has to sign contracts be willing to sign long-term contracts. You're seeing the work being done in Germany. They have announced the creation of 2 new LNG terminals. They're going to have 3 or 4 floating LNG terminal for the interim that should start operating. A couple of those start operating by the end of this year. So that's some of the commitments that the task force started working on.
Could I interrupt you there? Because I've heard so many different estimates as to how long it's going to take to get these import terminals, in effect, in position. You're saying it could happen in the next 6 to 8 months?
So there's different kinds of terminals. So there's the onshore full-time terminal that takes years to do. That takes 5 years to build. But in the interim, if you can get a ship that comes in, docks in your port, you have an interconnection that you build a short pipeline, that can be done within a matter of under a year. And so we're going to see a couple of those in Germany. Accelerate, an American company, just signed a contract with Finland. It's going to have one hopefully in October, connected to Estonia, and then move to Finland to address the Finland-Estonia Baltic markets. So these are the kinds of things that we're going to try to do. We worked with the Norwegians, and there's already an announced increase of 5 BCM from a field an LNG terminal and field in Norway that is coming online now. It's in its final stages. That will do about 5 BCM. Working in North Africa in the East Med, Israeli gas through Egypt and Jordan to get to Europe as well. So those are the kinds of things on gas. But second, as I talked about a little bit earlier, we also have to reduce the demand for gas using far better technology, efficiency standards. There are things that we can do on an immediate basis, some with American companies, some Asian companies that have the technology to do that. Europe buys 140 BCM of pipeline gas from Russia. That is not something that is easy to replace under the current market.
Are we going to meet our goal of adding 15 to that this year?
I believe so.
And I see that between January and April, we increased about 18% of our LNG exports, 74% of which is going to Europe. Is there enough infrastructure to be able to absorb what we are sending, these increased amounts?
So for now, yes, but if you look at every available terminal today, the capacity is full.
Yeah.
So that's why we're working with them on how do you address the capacity. And there may be another LNG terminal that we can get in place by the end of the year in Albania. So I'm trying to see what we can do with the available infrastructure,
Yeah.
the increase of immediate infrastructure, as well as long-term infrastructure, and then make sure that the gas is available to supply it.
Well, it sounds like we're not going to have enough gas to replace, as you say, this incredible dependency that they unfortunately developed with Russia. So thinking outside the box, and then I'll end my questioning. Thank you guys for your indulgence. What else? I mean, you mentioned energy efficiency. That's fine. They're more efficient than we are already. But I'm sure there are technologies to help on that. One thing that, some of these countries are still using nuclear power, France in particular. Romania, I was just in Romania last week. They're going from 20 to 40% nuclear. They want help from us, by the way. Please help us with Exim Bank to provide them the loan they need to make that happen. They're kind of frustrated with us since they left the Chinese company and decided to go with us. We need to help them more. But what else can we do? Hydrogen technology, I mean, is there something else we can do to sort of leapfrog this? Otherwise, it seems to me we're going to be playing a game of catch-up.
I agree completely. So first, I think they're not necessarily more efficient than we are. I think we are more efficient.
I'm talking about residential and commercial
me too.
energy efficiency standards.
Well, the standards are there, but because they don't use things like smart thermostats, because they don't
Okay,
have as many
good. That's
heat
good. So
pumps.
there's an opportunity to do more.
So we're working with the American private sector and others to see how we can surge and make the adjustments to these technologies that they fit the European models. I want to touch on Romania because I think this is critically important. We supported their effort on SMR, on modular reactors. They're right to be frustrated with us. I'm in touch with them directly. I think that is a key thing for us to support is advanced nuclear and not just traditional, but as we go into SMR, I think Czech Republic, Romania, Poland, seeing how much we can do to be helpful there. They need the support financially from us, not just from Exim Bank, but there are FEED studies need to be done that we should be helping finance through existing DFC, TDA, et cetera. That's something that I think will be a step change in dependency because electrifying the entire heating system is going to be extremely difficult. So we have to get that step of electrifying and then supplying the electricity.
Yeah, well, thank you for being an advocate for moving ahead aggressively there, since they have, again, made a decision to go with us rather than China. We got to step up, and that will be a model, as you say, a template for the region. They also built a cell energy to places like Moldova, who are desperate for it and don't want to be so dependent on Russia and the Transnistria plant. So thank you very much for your advocacy of that, and let us know if we can do anything to be helpful.